Hey there, heroes. Welcome back to another episode of Prosperous Human. I'm your host, Jim Johnson, and on this week's episode, we have a very special guest, a guest that has taken on a passion and a purpose probably bigger than anything I've ever seen before. It's this concept of connecting a very divided world, or as he likes to put it, undividing. Our guest today is Karl Dunn from Berlin, Germany. And his story is absolutely amazing. From rags to riches, and those riches may not be exactly what you're thinking. So if you're looking for a place where you need to be inspired a little bit to maybe lean into conflict with an open mind to understand maybe where the other person's coming from, hang out today, and we're going to bring you a very, very special episode of Prosperous Human. See you on the inside.
Again, it comes back to, as people, we all have to talk to each other. Forget who's in the parliament or in the government. That person was put there by people. So if the people are all talking to each other, that is how we change government.
Can we actually overcome this feeling of scarcity? So I have to survive, and I got to survive more than the next guy, because if anybody's going to go, I want him to go, not me to go. And I think there's just this basic human instinct that power and achievement and success and all that other stuff is wrapped up into this identity of who I am, where I think it's a false sense of reality.
People speaking on your behalf against their tribe in rooms you will never be in, that will change more than anything anyone posts on social media ever. And that's the power of conversation. It's the ripple effect of that. To realize, oh, this person I was told was evil is actually just a human.
Hey, Karl, welcome to our show, Prosperous Human. And I'm super happy to have you here because this is a bit of a unique situation for me. I'm on Substack. You're on Substack. Most people don't even know what Substack is.
Yes.
And I found your content, and it was extremely attractive to the things that I'm about in my world. And so welcome to the show. You're author of newsletter or Substack called Undivided. Tell us a little bit about Undivided and what it's all about.
Oh, it's actually undividing.
Undividing.
It started off because I wanted to start a Substack to try out some ideas for a book that I was planning to write. So I wrote my first book, which was actually a memoir about my divorce from my ex-husband. It was the first book on gay divorce. Once I put that out in the world, which was an act of service, I thought, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to do? And I had I was doing this newsletter off of Substack, and then I'd heard about Substack. And I think like most people, when we hear about it, we get in there and tinker around a bit like, what is this? Like, how does this all work? What's going on here? And and then I moved the newsletter to there, and I changed the name of it. And I was talking with a friend of mine, Uli, who's German, and I was explaining to him what I was trying to do. I said, I'm trying to I see all these divisions in the world, and I want to be a voice that's about putting them back together. And Uli just looked at me and said, so you're trying to undivide the world. You're like undividing. That's the idea. And he's a German speaker. He speaks fluent English, but he's German, and he thought that was a real word in English, and it's not. Yeah. Undividing and to undivide don't exist in English. Only undivided in the past tense is a word we use, like my undivided attention. But to actively undivide is not a word.
You made it a verb.
It's a really frustrating thing when you're writing something called undividing, because every time you write it, it tries to autocorrect it. So I have to go back and pick it apart every newsletter. But I really liked the name, and I thought, that's great. That's a really good start. And then I just started writing about it. And as in Substack, and for your listeners who may not know, within Substack, there's notes, which are like a kind of, it's like having old school Twitter. I'm going to say Twitter, not X, like Twitter, in a kind of magazine publication, like an old Huffington Post or something. And I had some notes go viral right at the beginning, and 3 in a row, and they just were like a rocket that I was riding. And back when you first start out and you have no idea what you're doing. And so I think the name of it, the intention, the fact that I'm really adamant about keeping mine free, because I think I have to because of the topic that I write on. Undividing, reconnecting a divided world can't just be for the people with money. It's got to be for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that was also a part of it that really attracted people, because obviously there's that ongoing debate on Substack. Do you put paywalls up? Do you not? When? On what content? And I was going through all of that. And then when I just decided everything's free, it actually took all that stress away.
Yeah, that's been a funny thing for me too. I had an aspiration. Hey, I'm going to write, see if anybody likes it. If they do, then maybe I'll do this paid newsletter. And I've decided the same thing. I'm going to keep my stuff free. This idea of being a prosperous human is super funny, because the reason I asked you to be on the show, I went, man, this guy and we're aligned.
Yeah.
We need to bring this world together, not split it apart. And the word prosperous has been maliciously misused by American society, I would say. This idea that it's something to achieve, they've turned it into a noun, that type of thing. And really the root word is a verb. It's an action. It's a way of being. It's a life that you live. And similar right there, this has got to be for everybody. It can't just be for those that can afford to pay for it. And if they want to go further than that with me, we'll have some other stuff, some classrooms and some other things that we want to do, some group stuff, maybe. But I'm going to let them determine. I'm going to let this be as organic as possible. Are you doing something similar with yours?
No, not yet. Like I said, I mean, mine happened so quickly, it took me really by surprise. And so with that volume of subscribers that I had in such a short space of time, it went from something that I thought was going to take up this much time to it takes up a huge amount of time, because it's not just the writing. For me, the most interesting part of it is to be in the comments. That's where all the learning is. I mean, there's some really smart people on Substack who will write comments that expand the thought that you had, or really flesh it out, or completely argue with you on it in a great way, where they're like, no, I disagree, actually. And I've had a couple of things that I've posted as notes that I've been like, yeah, I really believe. And in the course of the comments that I've gone down afterwards, I'm like, actually, you know what? I've totally changed my mind now. But I love about it. But it's taken up a volume of work, and I'm planning something else that I'm hoping is going to pay for it without anyone having to pay for the public version of what I've got now. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Cooking something up.
I'm interested to find out more about that.
All right.
This idea of undividing, what spurred it? And is it simply passion for you at this point? Hey, that's the whole reason I'm doing this? Or was there something in particular that poked and prodded you to go, I've got to do this?
Yeah, it was a few things. I would say my writing, which is, I've been a writer since forever, has taken on many forms. I was in advertising full time for 20-something years, and was lucky enough to rise to the top of that industry, and spent 13 years in America before I moved here. And so that's the nexus of where business and commerce meet, is in advertising. So it really fired all parts of my brain, which I loved. That said, I love the industry in the sense of the people I get to work with and the kind of creative problem solving that we do and the business that we do. But the morals of that industry and often of our clients got to me a bit. So there was definitely a moment when my career in America crashed and burned very quickly around my divorce. It was all wrapped up together. When I got to Berlin and started to rebuild myself, I have a long history with this city, which is why I came here. And I didn't know for how long, but anyway, I'm still here. I just decided I wanted to use my powers for good. So that was the first part of it. The writing I've done, for 7 years, I was actually a full-time screenwriter in LA. And that's what took me to Los Angeles originally. And all my stories have always been about connection, understanding yourself, learning to love yourself. And my favorite thing is when I find a way to connect the dots between things that don't seem to match, but you find this interesting universal theme through them all. So there's that. And then fortunately, because of my career in advertising, I lived all over the world. I lived in 11 cities in 9 countries and 5 continents. So I've been very fortunate. There was no plan to any of that. It just happened that I've been able to live in countries and live amongst people and be the foreigner and to understand all these different ways that there are of living that are out there in this world, and all the different ways there are of like living, worshiping, eating, celebrating, being a human. What are the morals of this culture versus this culture? And to see that really we have so much more that connects us than divides us. And I know this because I've seen it. And so there was a lot of that. And I didn't see people talking about that in the world. Weirdly,
Yeah.
I saw the world getting more and more divided. And then I think there was a kind of inciting incident that happened last year, pre the election, when I was on holidays with some American friends of mine. And they are Democrats, and they were in panic about the coming election. And we had this conversation where they were definitely of one side and were not moving from that side, and that everybody else who was on this other side was wrong, or idiots, or this or that. And
And they're not
I
moving
don't,
either. They're not
yeah, I
moving.
don't want to point fingers at my friend. They're great
Yeah.
people, but I understand, it's what the world has turned us into. It's not really their fault. It's the way we've been manipulated to always be insides and thinking that one of us must win over the other one. And that we're all waiting for some hero to come in and defeat this enemy without any of us having to take a step into the middle. We will win somehow, which honestly makes the extremes as bad as each other because there's an unwillingness to bend. Anyway, I was saying to him, I really feel like they'll just need to be talking with each other. And his reaction was, I can't talk to those people. I was like, don't you have any friends who don't vote like you do? He's like, God, no, I couldn't be friends with people like that. Then where are these conversations happening? And he said, trust me, they're happening. I'm like, yeah, but who? If you're not doing it, and then your friends are doing it, who's actually doing it? And I said to him, this isn't an aha gotcha. This is me really genuinely asking, where are these conversations? Because I would amplify them if I could. And he didn't have an answer. And the more I started looking around, I couldn't find a place either. So I thought, I'll start undividing and I don't know, we'll see what happens. And that was really all the thinking that went into it. Yeah.
You said something earlier that kind of stuck out to me, that you write a note or you write an article and there's comments on it. And
Yeah.
you're like, hey, this is cool. Then as you get down to the comments, like, oh, wait a minute. I need to maybe rethink what I put. And maybe I see it a whole different way now. And I think that's the first step in all of this.
Yeah.
Is this idea that, hey, I could actually be wrong. Or not necessarily even that, but I could have a misperception of what the ultimate outcome is. And so they're not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's somewhere in between. And through conversation, we're actually able to flesh it out a little bit
Yeah.
and come to a more unified and still maybe be on opposite ends, but not undivided.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I was reading the Substack a friend of mine, Bradley Sherman, does called New Media. And Bradley wrote a really interesting piece today that I was reading about how he lives in Washington. He's in that world of the Washington governmental world. It's very interesting.
I don't see them.
Yeah, it was fascinating stepping in because when I was on the tour, we met through a friend and it was just really interesting walking around in his footsteps through his Washington. He was saying that a bar through an event that was for Democrats and Republicans who do not like what they're seeing to come together and just talk. There was no agenda other than there's a space here for anyone from either side, anywhere on the political spectrum to come and talk to people and say, yeah, I want to figure this out too, and let's just see what happens. And I thought, this is really, that's the kind of thing that we need to see more of in every country. We have our own problems here. We have the rise of the far right, the AfD, and Germany, interestingly, will not do business. It's in the constitution. They will not interact with any group that's been dubbed a far right extremist group, which is AfD has
I
been
read something
deemed.
about that recently.
Yeah. And when they wrote this rule, they never imagined that a far right extremist party would ever become 20% of the government. But they are. They're 20% of the Bundestag now. People can have all the opinions they want on that. They can all say this should never have happened, but it did happen because that's what people want. And that's the thing, like we'll often point at those symbols or the apex thing, but forget the fact that people voted for them to be there because people felt that the message they had spoke to them. So again, it comes back to, as people, we all have to talk to each other. Forget who's in the parliament or in the government. That person was put there by people. So if the people are all talking to each other, that is how we change government. And it honestly, like the more I do this work, the more it just comes back to, we just need to be talking to each other and listening to each other.
Do you find it pretty common that people aren't willing to talk to each other? And if so, like your Democratic friends that you were hanging out with, they're like, I could never talk to them.
Yeah.
Do you see that more commonly, or do you see people willing to talk more commonly? And if it's the former, how do you think that is?
I think there's a few reasons why I think so my personal feeling, and I base this on no science whatsoever, is that I think there is a great middle of people who, like the people who turned up to that event that Bradley went to in Washington, the people that I keep meeting on Substack, and I'm sure you keep meeting there as well, seem to be a lot of people who want this world to make sense for everyone. And they're from all sides. I never write about politics. I never write about religion. I don't write about explosive, divisive issues per se, where I have to land on a side. I try to be as even as possible, because those are the kind of conversations we need to have. And I think that the loudest people are on the extremes, but I do think they're the minority. However, because they're loud and they're cliquey, that's what we hear a lot of. That's what, when we go to any kind of social media, that's what's blasted at us. And to be honest, rage is the business model of media now and social media. The more clicks something gets, the more ad space can be sold. The more ad space that's sold, the more money's banked. And then everybody says it's just business and we have to keep the shareholders happy. And this is what's going on everywhere. And it's a shame, but sadly it's what works because it's our instinct to react. And we have become reaction junkies. So that's why those extremes are the ones that we hear a lot of, because they get the volume knobs turned up to 11. But I think there is a vast majority of us in the middle, and we don't have a space or a voice and the kind of things we want to do, which are about nuance and context and collaboration. That's not sexy. That's the kind of hard work that happens off social media in real life that no one's ever going to see and do likes on. And you can't datify that or monetize that. But that's the work that I think most people actually want to do, but they don't know how, because we've been trained out of it, which is another problem. I think people would be willing to, but they don't know how to begin. So part of what I'm doing is just trying to give people very simple skills about how to step into conversations, how to begin conversations. I think we are very divided, but it looks like we're more divided than we actually are. And I think there is a willingness of a majority of people in the middle who want to build bridges. And that, the other part I would say to that is that group of people don't have a vision. I think what we're seeing is there's a right wing that's emerged everywhere. They have a very clear vision. And I respect the fact that they're incredibly articulate and clear about their vision. The left everywhere seems to be, we are anti the right, but no vision per se of what it is that they're shooting for. And then there's all these people in the middle who I think have been lost over the last 10 years, who also need a vision and a voice and a North Star. Like yourself, I'm in contact with a bunch of people I meet on Substack. Something is happening. People are feeling like we've got to take it back into our own hands. We've got to sort this out.
I couldn't agree more. Some of the most frustrating things in my world is I'm big on this whole idea of building bridges, not burning them. Even with somebody I'm diametrically opposed to. Hey, that's just way out there and extremist. And it can be any of a number of things. I'm not going to use those buzzwords that people use that are signs of that extremism. But I do everything in my power to have a healthy conversation. And I find that most of that healthy conversation is coming from this place of helping me understand. Help me understand, where does it all come from? Some of the tenets of this prosperous human thing that I've been working on that I never planned to do, almost forced into doing, that has nothing to do really with the business that I've been running for the last 12 years. Well, one of the tenets is, what do I believe? First off, I got to know what that is. What do I actually believe? So I believe this, and then asking yourself the follow-up question, why do I believe it? And that's the one that takes work and effort and time and energy that ultimately leads you to the last question, which is it true? And I think so many of us are comfortable in this echo chamber that we live in that has been formed over many years of your upbringing, your environment you were in, your friends that you're around, all these things that factor into who you identify as, that it's scary to say, hey, could I be somebody else?
Yeah. I think maybe one of the things that has helped me find my way to this and why I enjoy it so much, and maybe if I could be so bold, maybe to say, excuse me, that I maybe am good to some degree at it, is I think,
You're great at it.
Thank you, mate. I think as a gay man, we learn this really early because it's a very interesting thing being gay or LGBTQ plus, because we're from everywhere. We are a naturally occurring part of nature. And yet, for the last 2,000 odd years, we've been hunted, persecuted, killed, jailed. We've been classified as having mental illnesses. When AIDS came along, it was like, fantastic, wipe them out. We know what it is to be other. And there's some point where we have to make that choice, where we have to step away from everything that we've been told is normal, acceptable, and we have to leave our tribe, if you like, or risk losing them. I have to say, I'm very fortunate. I come from a house where I have incredibly supportive parents. My parents were working class, and they built something for me and my brother. When I look at where my dad started out and where he got to when I came out and where he's gone to since then, my parents are incredible in the length that they have traversed there. But a lot of my friends are not so lucky, particularly if they come from very religious backgrounds. We have this ability to understand what it is to live in one group and yet be something else. And I think the duality of that gives a kind of muscle to be able to hold two contradictory things at the same time and know that both can be true. And that is a skill. And it is a skill to question what, to say, maybe I don't believe this. Maybe this is just something I was told. Maybe it's not true. And again, it's the kind of thing we only find out in conversations. I went to the Prop 8 rallies in 2008 in San Francisco, and I was there. We were protesting loudly for marriage equality, and they bust in a lot of people. What people don't realize about California is it's very conservative, actually, once you're out of the cities. It's very, especially in the North and the South, very conservative.
Funny enough, I think that applies to most states in the U.S.
Yeah. So they bust all these kids in from churches. And look, I've got to say, respect. They organize, man. They organize, they mobilize. They have people there, a lot of people. And there was this moment where we're yelling at them and they're yelling at us. And there was this kind of strange moment where suddenly I found myself face to face with 4 or 5 of them as we'd all been thrown to the front, but on the side. And we were all shocked by our sudden proximity, and we all stopped yelling and we're just looking at each other. Oh, this is awkward. For want of a better, it was just super awkward.
I think you realize you're both human beings.
Yeah.
At the root of it all.
And I said, where are you from? And they named a town I hadn't heard of that was from up north. So I flew in from LA for this. So I guess none of us are from here in San Francisco. I was like, do you have any gay friends in your town? And they all went, no. There was one who seemed to be the leader of this little group of 4. And I said, I've got religious friends and I'm cool with them. I just feel like if you knew us, you wouldn't be afraid of us. And then I said, you know what? Ask me anything you want. I'll answer it as best I can. While this whole thing is yelling and shouting, whatever, we're like this little center of calm. And then what amazed me was they all had questions. They had a list ready to go. And I thought, this is interesting. I bet they've never had the chance to just talk to someone like me. For me, they seemed odd, the questions, but I'm like, oh, well, maybe if I was them, that's the first question I want to know. And we were just getting into it, and I was answering stuff, and we were having this good moment. And then an adult came to
Messed up everything.
Yeah, but not before the one who was the head of that group thrust his hand back so that we could shake hands. And I thought, this is interesting. There's, again, coming back to what you were talking about, going against your tribe. Like, they won that day, and Prop 8 was, the marriage equality was defeated. So we had it, and then we lost it, and then we got it back again later on. But when they went back to the town they were from, and people were like, how was the rally? And we won. They'd be like, yeah, it was great. We met this guy when we were there, and he seemed okay. And if they just said that, that would be fine. And some of the things he told us, like we asked him about this, and he told us this and this. People speaking on your behalf against their tribe in rooms you will never be in, that will change more than anything anyone posts on social media ever. And that's the power of conversation. It's the ripple effect of that. To realize, oh, this person I was told was evil is actually just a human. Okay. And then what that leads to.
I think the part that was the key was the proximity. You're face to face now instead of keyboard warriors, right?
Yeah.
Or echo chamber paradigm chanters.
Yeah.
You're face to face with another human being that eats, sleeps, breathes, tries to make it and survive in this world just like you do.
Yeah.
It's hard to be mean to somebody face to face unless you're just an evil or wicked person. Like, I think most people have a difficult time with that. I'll share a little story with you.
Please.
It might get me in all kinds of trouble, but we'll see.
You definitely have to tell me now.
I was raised in a very fundamental Christian church. One of those ones where you show up every Sunday, you get told like everything you just did all week long is you're going to go to hell for.
Right.
And the gay thing was like one of those things. And so as I got older, I went off to college. I actually had a gay roommate.
Oh, wow.
And he told me day one, and it was fairly obvious anyway.
Yeah.
And I made it a point that day to say, hey, I just want to understand. I don't get it. I got questions. And he was pretty cool about some questions. Like, I'm not going there, but most of the stuff. And we spent the semester together. He connected with his tribe while he was there his first semester. I connected with my tribe, and we went our separate ways. But for that whole semester, we got along.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, wait a minute. I was supposed to not like those people. I was supposed to think they're all going to hell. I'm supposed to think all that stuff. That's where all this kind of started for me, is what all this stuff I believe, is that actually like real? And here's the problem I run into. I don't know. I don't know what the actual outcome is going to be. When we all die, I don't know what happens. I have my beliefs. You probably have your beliefs. And I think most people we come across have their beliefs, but they're beliefs that we don't know. Those of us in the faith world are more from a spiritual aspect of, hey, we have faith, right? My job here is to love other people. It doesn't say love these specific people. It's
love other people.
Yeah, it's not that. Cool fine print with that. And so I've been pretty intentional throughout my life to be observant of the things I was told were the bad things. Like, these are the bad things. And being gay was one of those things. But here's my observation. Very rare circumstance I come across just a mean or bad gay person. All of you are super nice. Like, I was told Mormons are like, hey, don't be associated with them. They're heretics and all this other stuff. All right. I'm supposed to love you. I'm going to do that. And we're going to navigate this life that we're living on this planet together. I'd rather be in relationship with you than out of relationship with you, because it will help me better understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that's served me pretty well. It hasn't necessarily changed my mind. None of the heaven hell thing. It changed my judgment, I guess would be the way I would look at it. Using my own judgment, this is the life I choose to live. You choose to live that one. I don't understand it. And I may even not agree with it. But that doesn't mean I don't love you and I don't care for you. And I think all things could turn out well for you. Because if I turn my back on you, I'm just another one of those Christian hater people.
Yeah.
I'm not truly what it was intended to be, which is love God, love our neighbor. It's pretty simple, it seems like to me. I don't know where it's all going to go, but I do know one thing. I will never condemn you. I might judge, like, that's not a choice for me, but I would never condemn you. And that's actually biblical. We're not supposed to do that as Christians. Only one entity gets to do that.
Right. Yes.
And I don't think enough people have read the Bible long enough or deep enough to go, hey, wait a minute, it says not to do that.
Again, it's you coming, like you started off talking about like, why do I think what I think? And there's a guy I read on Substack. I found him originally on Instagram and I started reading his Substack called Brian Recker. And Brian has a really interesting Substack called Beloved. And he's an I can't remember the church he was with, but he was a like evangelist pastor who now is rereading the Bible, and he's left the church and is still very committed to his faith. But he does the most fascinating breakdowns of the Bible, and he has this interesting take on it that I've never heard anyone say before. He said, it's a text. It's up for interpretation. Here is how I choose to interpret it. And it was such a fascinating, because whenever we hear Bible stuff, and particularly people from my community, it's quoted very hard and fast at us. And I really like Brian's work because he reframes so many things that I've heard a million times. And I go, that's interesting. Yeah, because I wasn't raised with any religion. My parents were not. They just didn't. Yeah. But again, coming back to like the things that we think we know, I find the interesting thing about being LGBTQ plus is that theoretically, we shouldn't reproduce. If we're a recessive gene, we shouldn't keep occurring. And yet, every generation, every country around the world, here we are again. Like it's what I found, and this wasn't something I heard from Brian. It was something I read for him that spawned some thinking that landed me at this point, was that I don't know why we're here, but we are here. And for some reason, we happen all the time.
Just for clarity, when you say we, you mean your community?
Yeah. Okay. So the question for me isn't then, why do we exist? For me, it's like, why do we exist? That's a much more interesting question to ask. Because whether you believe 100% in science or 100% in that God created everything or somewhere in the middle, science, there's nothing like, nature has no excess. Nothing's superfluous in nature. Everything serves a purpose. And God makes no mistakes. So if we're here, as
You're
we
going
seem to
down the
always
same
be,
road.
it's why are we here? I think that's not even a question we get to ask ourselves very much, because we spend our whole time explaining that, no, I think I'm actually meant to exist. It started leading me down this path of thinking that maybe survival of the fittest isn't about individuals, it's about survival of the fittest families. Here's an interesting thing about my community. If you ask anyone who's LGBTQ+, they all, like, almost always have older siblings. It is so rare that we are the firstborn. And they've actually started doing this thing, a study of something called epigenetics. And there's this idea that the mother codes the child in the womb depending on what is going on right now and what the family needs. Like, you can take a soldier and you can take a worker ant, and they look completely different, but they have all the same. The queen has made these ants. She's like, okay, we need some of these right now. I'm going to make some of those. Now we need more of these right now. I'm going to make some of these. And there's this theory in epigenetics that it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the fittest family. So if you have two heterosexual kids, one at least, you've got offspring. The family line continues. Now, it's a question of resources. If you have 4 kids and they're all going to reproduce, that's a lot of mouths. That's a lot of resources. And who knows what might happen to one of them. One of them might get, I mean, if you think we're like this far away from being apes, that maybe the eldest is going to die because they're the alpha and they're the ones who are at the front of the pack and they could get killed, whatever. Who's going to take care of the kids now? maybe that's what we're here for. We're the backups, we're the teachers, we're the glue. We are this, and there's even a theory amongst apes now that there's kind of not even like homosexuality, but same-sex behaviors that are about cohesion within a group. I don't know. The more I started researching this, the more I'm like, oh, this is getting really interesting stuff. Anyway, sorry, that's taken.
No, I want to bring it home. Like, I think
All
there's
right.
a place to bring this home right now. Because I was sitting here thinking about, am I going to share this or not share this? Am I going to make this statement or not make this statement? And I decided, it's my show. I can do what I want. So I'm going to make the statement.
Exactly.
If you don't like it, don't listen. That's okay.
Yes.
No,
You
before
clicked on my face.
Now, before you decide to unlisten, I
Yeah.
openly ask you to have conversation with me to help you understand a little bit more of where I'm coming from. Because what has happened by me opening up and sharing my situation, how I see things, Karl came back to me and shared something really interesting. Something I would have never even thought of or gone down the road before. But now it started in my head going, hey, I want to go learn a little bit more about this. Is there any truth to that? And maybe we can understand each other a little bit better. But if I don't open myself up to that conversation and be honest, hey, I don't necessarily agree with everything in that community, but that doesn't mean I devalue the community in any way. I find just as much value in you as anybody else. It's funny because I actually go to church at a Lutheran ELCA church, in which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I don't know what ELCA is. What's that?
Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, which
Okay,
I do not say I have a denomination. I'm not Lutheran. I'm also not Baptist or any of the others. I'm simply a believer. That's how I try to term
Which part of
that.
the states are you in?
I'm in Texas.
Okay.
This is where all the real fundamental type stuff goes.
I've been to Dallas and Austin many a time.
But if I wasn't open and willing enough to have a conversation with you, I might have missed something important. I might have missed something that, number one, helps me navigate my life, and number two, a relationship that could be awesome. Hey, we don't know. But that Evangelical Lutheran Church of America allows for gay members.
Oh,
And it was a big thing. This all happened in 2009. Female pastors had just really a division and literally created a whole new faction of the Lutheran Church over it. If they're not welcome in my church, where are they welcome? If there's one place they should be welcome, it's here. And when I say they, the community, your tribe, right? How awful is it that you're not welcome in a church? Like, I think that's so like counter and anti to the message of loving one another.
yeah.
And it's not my job to flip your belief or your nature or whatever. My job is just, hey, help you be a good human. And hopefully you help me be a good human.
I think this is the thing. We all seem to think that we have the truth, and I don't think we do. We've got a piece of it. And if we put all our pieces together, then we figure out what the whole thing is. Because I do, and I appreciate what you're saying about your church, because that is a big leap, and it is a big development from how it has been practiced for so long. And it does show that people change, institutions change, and they can change. I'm just going to circle back to something you were talking about before, about divisions. And I say this as somebody from a community who hears from a lot of religions about their thoughts.
I bet.
Is that we spent so much of our life being divided that so much of our identity is wrapped up in not so much who we are, but who we are not, who we are against. And I see this in a lot of everywhere. You'll see this between borders of two countries. You'll see this between different religions. And what I think is one of the biggest issues with undividing the world is that people are so invested in being anti this person or anti this group or anti this country that is their identity. And if they were suddenly to not be that, then they would have to ask the question, who am I if I'm not anti that or them or those people? And that is hard for a lot of people. So much of the day is taken up being anti that I often ask people, like, do you think you could survive peace? Do you think you could actually survive not having conflict? And I say this as somebody who, from my entire life in my job in advertising, was running from one disaster to the next, you're always 2 weeks behind and you're putting out fires the whole time. Then you get divorced and your life is literally crisis to crisis. When my life finally, like my divorce was resolved and a bunch of other things to do with it were done, and I had just started freelancing and I was like, okay, I'm making money again. I'm paying my bills. Like, things are good. A friend of mine said to me, all the dramas in your life right now, you've created them yourself. Because he said, I don't think you know how to live without conflict. You need to make friends with boring for a year. You need to go to the gym, pay your bills, run out of toilet paper, buy groceries. Like, you need to live a very boring life for a year and learn how to live during peacetime. And I was like, actually, I think he's right. And then I switched straight into, because I love a good challenge, I'm like, I'll show him. It was really hard to not have an enemy. And that surprised me. And then I realized, actually, I've had enemies my entire life. I've sought them out if I don't have them, or I've got some good ones on the back burner I can always bring out. Coming from my community, I don't know, pick a church. Let's hate on them today.
Yeah, who are we going after today?
Yeah, if you don't have enemies and you're not looking to make enemies, then you really have to look at, who am I if I don't have these people? And I think that is one of the biggest issues.
Yeah, because there's this whole thought out there that we thrive in conflict. That whenever there's obstacle or challenge, we tend to rise to the occasion, become something new, something better. We grow through that conflict and that challenge. And I think there's some truth to that.
Yes.
But I think this constant, that's the right word for it, attraction to it, maybe, that's something to question. Like, why are you always looking for something new to battle? And is that because it's more about you than it is the thing that you're battling? Those are the type of questions that just challenge me all the time, to the point that I'm like, is what this person's saying opinion or is it fact? Opinion, I can ask questions on. Fact, I can do more discovery of. But opinion doesn't make something true. Fact is as true as it can be right now until something else is discovered. They thought the world was flat for thousands of years. And then all of a sudden, guess what? It's round.
But this is also where, like, truth is so relative and facts are so relative, in the sense that, like, if H2O is water, right? So 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 of oxygen. Yeah. But H2O is also steam. It's also ice. It's also snow. And it literally doesn't change its chemical composition to be these things.
It's environment.
And whereas if this is all one person knows, they think it's a fact. Yeah, like here in Berlin, it's many things here in Berlin. At the moment, it's finally turning from snow and ice into water again. But let's say if you live on the equator, you're like, no, it's steam. We know, we've seen this. We know this to be true. And people in the Antarctic are like, no, it's actually snow. We've got 16 different words for it, or however many words.
Snow and ice and all the other good
stuff. So suddenly we've got 2 facts. And actually, we're all talking about the same thing. And that's where I think we get really caught up on what we see in front of us, which is fair enough. Like, we've seen it with our own eyes. We know this to be true. It doesn't mean it's the only thing that's true. It doesn't mean it's the only fact. And that's where I think we can get really caught up on. It comes back to the thing, like, I think we all have a piece of the truth. We don't have all of it together. We have to put our pieces together.
Yeah, I sit there and I think, like, education's a big hot topic here in America right now, because you're cutting everything. Yeah. And the fact that my wife is a retired teacher, I'm going to hear about it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, I don't think what that side's saying is education's bad and we shouldn't get it and we want to make you dumb. And I think your side is saying, we don't think education's bad. I think you're both saying the same thing. You just have a different approach at how you're trying to get there.
Yes.
Without understanding what the ultimate outcome is, and talking with each other how to achieve it the best way possible. It's
Mm.
my way or your way. There's no our way.
Yes.
And I think that our way part is probably the way that is most right. It may not be right per se, but it's the most right for all parties to go, okay, I can deal with some of the craziness.
That's 60% of what I was thinking. Cool. Yeah, I'm down with that. It's coming back to the thing you're saying about conflict. I absolutely agree with you. I think that is where we thrive. That is where we do our greatest development and thinking, and some of the greatest inspiration comes from conflict. But conflict doesn't have to be us versus them. Conflict can be all of us versus this challenge to us as a species. That's more interesting. I'd rather have the conflict of all of us together, because like you were saying, I think everybody actually is shooting for the same goal. They just think their way of getting there is the right way. So we're actually all probably wanting to get to the same place, but we get caught up in how everybody's talking about doing it, and maybe even forget that's what everybody is trying to do. If it was like us going, all right, as an entire planet working together, going, all right, we have got to drop the temperature of this planet or we're done for. Let's figure that out together, everybody working together. That's conflict, and that's a great one. Let's do that together. Or if we are going to go and terraform another planet and go and put colonies on other places, I feel like we should save the planet we're on, but I also do get,
Logical.
don't have all the eggs in one basket in case a comet comes. I have friends who are very into terraforming and space and all of that.
Good. There's other people that are going to go,
I'm 100% right here. I wouldn't mind just one trip up to have a look down at the planet and go, that's beautiful. Okay, I want to go back now.
oh, that's the themselves.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I don't think I want to live on Mars.
If we took the challenge of, all right, let's terraform, but get it right this time. Let's not have countries or divisions, or let us not be fighting each other on this next planet. Like, how can we make a fresh, if we're going to terraform a planet, let's do a fresh start where we don't bring all our old baggage with us, like a bad relationship. Let's figure that out and start the next one fresh. If we're going to do that, like, these are the kind of challenges we could give each other. Like, how do we make it, if there's enough money and enough food on the entire planet for everybody, then what are we doing?
Why is anybody going hungry?
Yeah, like, that's a good one for a whole planet of people to figure out. So I think conflicts are there if we want them, but we can pick better ones and do them all together.
Some of the things you mentioned, okay, so this idea of nations, maybe not a good thing. That seems to be causing problems and stuff like that. So if we went and did it somewhere else, maybe something without borders and those type of things. But then that almost takes the failings of our humanness out of the equations. And the question is, can you overcome them? Can we actually overcome this feeling of scarcity? So I have to survive, and I got to survive more than the next guy, because if anybody's going to go, I want him to go, not me to go. And I think there's just this basic human instinct that power and achievement and success and all that other stuff is wrapped up into this identity of who I am, where I think it's a false sense of reality. I think this, but I don't think it's solvable. I think some people are just hardwired that way, and they're not going to take enough time to think or consider that maybe there's a different way because it's the only way they know. I could be wrong, but it seems like for the history of mankind, that has been the issue. Do you see it to be something that could be solved? If so, should it be?
I think it's solvable in the sense that, put it this way, I think there's the potential for us to get past that, because unlike every other creature on this planet, we're sentient enough that we can have a conversation about the fact that this is how we're wired. Like, we can see our programming. We can talk about our programming. We have science that tells us how we're programmed. If we have all of that, then I think we can also leapfrog the instincts to go for something that is for the betterment of all, because we were developed and descended from a time when it was very much like, here are resources and we have to fight over all of these things. And we were not connected. We were different tribes. We were not all connected by culture or language or entertainment or news or an internet. But we are now. Like, we know about everybody else. And I think that there is a way, and it would take a concerted effort, and this is not something that gets solved in a generation. One of my favorite sayings, it's a saying from India, is we don't have to solve everything in one lifetime. And I think this is the kind of thing that is, I actually think, to be honest, I think we are at the next stage of our evolution as a species, which is we do actually have to figure out how to work together. I think that is the next evolution for us, because it has been about nations and us and them and scarcity. But is there scarcity really?
You're talking about biblical stuff, right? When people collaborate, they produce a fruit beyond anything that they could have done individually. Finally encouraged him enough to get on Substack because he's just far from in this world of collaboration.
Isn't that the best feeling when you get it? A friend, start your Substack and they get it.
So awesome. And his writings are great. His name's Reggie Brock. That's the name of his Substack, Reggie Brock. I'm like, he's going to put a little more thought there. But everything he talks about is this friction between people and turning it into collaboration to produce something that you couldn't have done individually on your own. And I think that message is something that needs to be more pronounced out there in the world, which is why I encouraged him to put it out there. Because where my stuff is more about fixing me first, like me right, and so I'm not a screwed up mess. And then now that I'm not a screwed up mess, I understand that it's not all about me anymore. It's about we working together to help them. Then who's my tribe? Who can I collaborate with to help on a grand scale? And I want to be really cautious in this word of significance. I think so many people thrive, like they don't even tend to start things because they feel like they can't make a dent in it. It's not significant enough. You just have this thing here in town about the homeless issue. Our growing fast, second fastest growing city in America.
Yeah.
Because we're right between Austin, San Antonio. You had Facebook and everybody from California moved here. Those guys moved over here and said, hey, we're going to buy everything.
Yeah.
And it's just created this turmoil that's happening in our area. But this idea of collaborating with people, this group did a little thing at the theater about the homeless problem that's starting to become prevalent in our town. But all these different organizations got together and they were very proactive about it. They have a plan. They're working on the plan. They're in communication with nobody's double doing anything. Even like the police chief and the fire chief are all like, I've never seen any place like this before, working together to ensure that these people that are being displaced, with 75% of them are local. They're from here.
Wow.
It's not like they're coming in from somewhere else. And they did this, the documentary shared that with us. And last place in the world you should talk to anybody is in the bathroom. But I was in the bathroom and we're both washing our hands, me and another guy. And I said to him, man, if that doesn't hit you're dead inside. Yeah. Seriously, like you're just dead inside.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, man, that was just, wow. But it's such a big problem.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do anything that's significant. If you just help one person, would that be significant?
Exactly.
And so I want to be careful of how we use that word of significance, but in collaboration. If he helps one and I help one and she helps one and they help one, now we've helped a significant, according to Americanized version of that word, a group of people. So it's got to start somewhere and with just one step. Take the little. And so it was cool to see him because we decided, hey, we're getting involved. I was actually homeless twice as a young kid. And so it really hit me hard. So we decided we were going to help. And we went and served this past Saturday. We made breakfast for this place called First Footing, where they're moving off the street and trying to move it back into society again.
Hey.
Cool, man. You're helping one person. That's all it takes.
Nice.
And it worked out really good. And he started to share with me why he said it that way. And then it finally came down to it's because of what he'd been told. He goes, I could not stop thinking about that conversation in the bathroom. If I could just help one person, would it make a difference? And it would to them.
Yes. I am constantly amazed at the effect that my book has had. People write to me who are not from the community, who are not getting divorced, and they tell me about how it's helped them in something that's going on in their life that hasn't. I didn't even write about that, but they saw themselves in the story. And I think there's something the ripple effect of the things that you do. The people who write to me on Substack and tell me how what I wrote about has inspired them, because every time I hit publish, I'm like, oh, is this one that good? I don't know. I think
That's
it's
me,
okay.
right?
Like as soon as I publish it, I'm sitting there reading it at 5 past the publishing. I'm like, it's published now. What blows me away is that while I've been sitting there going, I don't know. It's already had 2,000 people have already read it, and people have started writing back and they're commenting on the. I'm at it and not refreshing the page. People are putting comments underneath it already saying, this is fantastic. I could use this for this, or the thing you wrote last week, that really inspired me to do this. And we had this great outcome from it. So yeah, it's just, you do your thing. Like something I wrote about, and I think it's because we get told that a lot of what we do doesn't matter. Or if we can't make a big enough dent in the universe, there's no point in even trying. There's no nobility in small. Yeah. Whereas something I started saying, and it seems to be catching on amongst the undividing readers, is this idea of just fix what's in front of you. You can care about a lot of things that are not within your arm's reach or not even within your view. Like something happening over there, I can care about that. Can I really fix it and change it? Not really. But this thing that's right here in front of me, that I can do something about.
Well, I think that first part isn't about them. It's about you.
Yes.
I can't make this big change, so I'm not going to do it. Why is that? Because you're wanting something from that. You're wanting recognition. Your ego needs to be fed. There's pride involved in it. There's something like that underneath that you probably need to dig into, because you're telling yourself it's not worth the effort unless I get something for it.
Yes. It comes back to that Good Samaritan lesson. It's you do the thing with no thought of what you'll get in return. This is something, okay, I'm going to quote Lady Gaga now. Let's go from the Bible to Lady Gaga.
Bible to Lady Gaga. This is great. This is the best episode ever.
All the great thinkers. She said this thing once that I thought was so brilliant. She said, don't go for fame, go for impact. And she said that's how she did her entire career. She said, for me, it was always about what impact can I make? And that has always been her North Star. And she said, I met a lot of people in this industry who set out to be famous, and some of them pulled it off. But a lot of people, they came here to be famous. And she said, there's like nothing behind what they're doing except their ego. But if you just go for the impact, that's when you feel like I'm doing something that matters, and people feel it from you. And they're like, this person is genuine. They care about this. They want to do this. That's all matters.
So wild that you're sharing that, because there's 7 elements to this whole prosperous human thing. And the 7th, although there isn't really an order, is impact. Because I don't like the words significance or legacy. I think they tend to have an ego thing behind them. That's anytime you hear somebody talk about legacy, it's like my legacy, the legacy I want to leave. Like it always has the my and I in it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But impact, I don't care about anybody ever associating my name with it. Like I'm doing right by you and I'm sharing something with you, or I'm giving something of value to you simply because I want you to have it. And I hope that you share it. And I don't care if you remember my name. That ripple, that impact is the type of stuff that can change a world.
I saw this interview with Jack White from the White Stripes.
Yeah.
And he was being interviewed by Conan, and Conan was asking him, Seven Nation Army, that is, what is that song to you now? Because it has taken on a life beyond. And he said this really interesting thing. He said, Seven Nation Army is the greatest thing I'll ever write in my life because nobody knows I wrote it. That's what's so great about it. He said, it's now folk music. People, like if you go to the UK, people chant it at football matches, at soccer matches. He said, most of them have no idea where it comes from. But he said, I'll pass a stadium and I can hear the whole stadium going, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm so happy because my name isn't even attached to it now. It lives out in the world now. He said, that as a musician, it's the greatest accomplishment you can ever have, that people don't know that this thing came from you. I was like, oh, what a take on impact and fame. I just thought, so there was that. And then the other thing that I thought about impact that I think is really salient and about doing something for one person is I wrote this thing about strangers a few weeks ago and how every single day we help strangers. We help them with a door, or we give a seat up on a bus, or we carry something for them, or we pick something up that they dropped. We never ask them, how did you vote?
What team do you root for?
Exactly. Like, you never ask. You just go, oh, here's a human who needs a hand. I will help this human. And I did a thread on Substack saying, hey, what's the greatest thing that a stranger has ever done for you? It was one of the most popular threads, hundreds of responses. Remember that? That's right. That's right. That's right.
I was coming back from San Diego. I had run out of money. I was trying to get back to my daughter and family.
That was you. Yes.
And I asked somebody for $20 and he gave me $100 to make sure I made it all the way home.
Yes.
Dude, I didn't know that guy from Adam.
And that's the incredible thing, is that you will still tell that story for decades after it happened. This guy probably doesn't even remember it, but he's just, oh, here's a human. I can help this human. And it's one person helping one person. We tell these stories our entire lives. The ripple effect of just telling the story makes people want to help other people.
Reminds me of that movie, Pay It Forward.
And the thing, like when I wrote that strangers one, and especially with that thread, that was the thing that really hit me, was the stories people told. And so many people said, this happened 30 years ago. They're still telling it. And so coming back to impact and connection between people, that is like, as crazy as the world gets, we are also capable of that.
Yeah, wow.
And we can do it every single day for everybody around us. Like every interaction we have with someone can be a joy or it can be a division. And that is our choice as we walk through this world feeling like there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. The little things.
Yeah.
That's so good. Hey, I know I've kept you like longer.
Oh, yes. You're going to get going.
Yeah. And you're over there in Germany, I'm sure. What time is it?
It is just going almost 20 past 8 p.m.
Okay. So thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you, man.
It's been a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I really enjoyed myself, mate.
I love when podcasts go from being just a conversation.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
If anybody, first off, we didn't even tell what Substack was. It's It's like the best things about social media without any of the ads, without any of the, I've never seen anybody be rude, negative, or mean to another person. I'm sure it probably exists. I just haven't seen it.
I get a few in my feed.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The vast majority is encouraging, helpful, that kind of stuff, which is so refreshing.
I love reading those notes by people who've just turned up and they're just like, oh my, what is this? These people are so nice. They almost can't believe it's real. Substack is incredible.
I don't know. I've probably brought about 1,000 people to Substack to get off that social media stuff. Come over here.
Yes.
Were you the one that wrote from doom scrolling?
Bloom scrolling into the dictionary. Bloom scrolling. Yeah.
All right. I could talk to you all day long. Thank you so much.
Mate.
I hope maybe some point in the future we get to check back in, see where you've gone with Undivided.
I would love that. Yeah.
Keep paying attention and reading for sure.
All right. Nice one, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Karl.
It, mate. All right.
Really appreciate it, brother.
What an amazing podcast. Karl, we really appreciate you being here today. This episode has so much in it. It's power-packed with advice and golden nuggets on how to collaborate with other people to make something that none of you could do individually. How to have conversations with people you may not agree with. And funny enough, you might find out that you agree on more than you think. Reality is, most of the time, we all want the same thing. We're just taking a different route to get there. Karl did such a great job of it, sharing that with us. Go and check out his Substack. His Substack is called Undividing. If you haven't seen Substack before, you might go and check it out. If you're looking for a place to get yourself right, to feel unburdened in this world that's full of burden and responsibility, go check out our Substack, Prosperous Human. You can also find us on YouTube. And if you're really ambitious, you might go check us out on School. Go to prosperoushuman.com. You'll find our School platform where you can actually go through identifying the places where you live in the extremes in these 7 elements of a prosperous life. Thanks for hanging out with us on today's episode. Everything we do is free because we believe that living a prosperous, unburdened life should be available to all. We'll see you on our next episode.